2. The other one, I ran out of space. I'm back for more reviews, and I've been trying to work my way through the Predators and Aliens universe in films, which also, oddly enough, sort of includes Blade Runner and sort of includes the movie The Soldier. Way distantly related, but I'm not going to go into those. I've been watching the Aliens and the Predator and Aliens movies, and when you look at these films, you kind of got to break them down into 4 sections. Essentially, you have the Predator movies, Predator 1, 2, and 3, which is just called Predators. And we have Aliens versus Predators as another section. We have the prequel Alien movies, Prometheus and Covenant. And then we have the 4 Alien movies, which are Alien, Aliens, Alien 3, and Alien Resurrection. So I'm going to try to break them down as best I can. I'm probably not going to cover everything tonight because I haven't rewatched everything tonight. But I have watched Predator, Predator 2, Aliens vs. Predator, Aliens vs. Predator Requiem, and Predators. I'm going to warn you now, it's like 3:15 in the morning, so I'm kind of almost spent and tired from the day. So this might be a little sloppy, but sometimes that's funny. At any rate, Predator, there's not enough good things to say about the movie. It's easily a classic. It's one of those movies that every line from the damn film is quotable. From Dylan to get to the chopper. And even the small lines like, I wouldn't wish that on a broke dick dog, Major. Or we're all gonna die. There's not one line in the damn movie that's not quotable. It's so much fun. Action-packed, great actors, great cast. And introduces us to easily one of the best modern monsters of movies in modern times. The Predator. You really can't... I'd never get tired of watching it. It's one of those films where I can come in 10 minutes into it or 10 minutes to the end, and I'm stuck watching it to the end because that's what's going to happen. So... because it's that good. Then we'll talk about Predator 2. Now, a lot of people crap on Predator 2, and they're not real happy with it because obviously Arnold's not in it. But you know what? The truth of the matter is that I have never understood the people who hate Predator 2 or didn't like it or felt it was an inferior film. It might be slightly less better than the first one, only in of the fact that it's not nearly as quotable as the first movie. And obviously it's a different setting and different cast, but I don't think the cast is any worse. It's pretty good. The cast is really good. I think everybody does a pretty good job. I think if I have one complaint about the film at all, it's probably that the cast probably doesn't necessarily get as much time to develop or we get as much time to find out about the characters as we do in the first movie. And even that's not really the case because we get some pretty good development on every character. It's not like there really isn't a huge problem with it. And I gotta be honest, I absolutely love the end of the film. And yes, I'm giving away spoilers to Predator 2, a movie that came out in, 1991? I think it was. So, if you can't deal with it, shut the fuck up. Then stop watching my videos, because sooner or later there'll be spoilers on films I'm reviewing that are like 30 fucking years old. So at any rate, when we get to the point where Danny Glover actually ends up besting the Predator and like 9 more come out, that's a holy shit moment. I know I almost was like, holy shit, when I saw it in the theaters. Predator 2 also for me has a distinct honor of being the first film I definitely remember going to the theaters more than once to see, which is not something we realistically do anymore with the way things come out on DVD as pretty quickly or streaming services. It's not really something people do too much anymore, where they run to the theaters to see a movie multiple times. It does still happen. I'm seeing that with people with Infinity War lately, going more than once. So it does still happen, but it was the first movie I had done that with. I think it's a good sequel. I enjoy it. I think it sets up even more of the Predator universe. When the Predators give Danny Glover the gun that says 1712 on it, or 1812, whatever it says on it, to show that they've been doing this for a very long time. And there's many stories out there, I think, that helped expand the universe immensely. And then, of course, we would be remiss without mentioning the fact that in the Predator's trophy case on a ship is an alien skull, which set nerds ablaze, geeks ablaze, and I know I was one of them for a long time. Oh my god, Aliens vs. Predator, that sounds like a great idea. And that brings us to, because I'm trying to go in chronological order of watching them, after Predator and after Predator 2 would come Aliens vs. Predator, and then Aliens vs. Predator 2 Requiem. I believe Predators actually takes place after the second Aliens vs. Predator. Now, by the way, if you've never read the Aliens vs. Predator comic books, and I imagine most people probably haven't read all those comic books, and I'll be honest, I don't think I've read them all myself. I read the first series, which I thought was fucking amazing. It was a great series. Way better than the film we got, but we'll talk about the film on its own merits. Aliens vs. Predator. It's a rough one. I think it's a rough one in a lot of terms. First and foremost, I think people are just kind of put off by how quickly the aliens develop. For those of us who don't really, or if you're not familiar with it, I don't know why you aren't, but an alien does take some time to develop from the stage of the egg to the face hugger to the implantation to eventually coming out of you to eventually growing to full size. It doesn't happen in the course of 5 minutes. And in this film, it feels like that's the way it works. These characters are not in this underground temple that long when they're already sprouting aliens and popping out of their chest. And the Predators show up and, all right, cool, we got Predators versus aliens. And the two of the three Predators get knocked off really fucking easy. From there on out, the cast of this movie, and I'm not going to bag on them, nobody was horrible in the movie, but they become like victims in a Friday the 13th movie as the franchise lingers on. They're there to be introduced and killed off, and who really gives a shit what their job is, and they really don't try hard to make these characters somebody that you're going to care about when they get killed. They're just there to get killed. That's all there is to it. And I think that's probably two of the biggest issues with Aliens vs. Predator, the first Aliens vs. Predator. There's a lot of stuff, too, that doesn't make a lot of sense and feels a little shitty and stupid. Such as things like the fact that, there's an underground temple, and we used to worship the Predators, and I'm not going to say that's a bad backstory for it. I mean, it's as good a backstory as any, really. They've already established that they've been coming here for hundreds of years already, so it's not like it's a horrible idea. And ironically enough, still fits all within the Aliens Predator universe. But, on a lot of basis, I think it just develops from, it falls into that category of film of quick junk food throwaway kind of film. And that's where I think a lot of people's problems with the movie come into. It just becomes a situation where you don't really care about the characters. The story doesn't really have to make much sense. All they really want to do is have action sequences. And whether they make sense or not, whether the characters fully developed or not, the makers of the film just didn't care enough about that. They just wanted to make something quick, something fast, something dirty, something to cash in on the idea that we were going to have aliens fighting predators. And they really don't do it very well. And on top of not doing it very well. Anybody who had read the original comic book that was out at the time really is going to have a huge distaste for the film, because it kind of cherry-picked a little piece here and a little piece there and said, well, we're going to use this, but we're just going to bastardize the whole story and come up with something that really doesn't exactly fit what we've done previously, or we're totally not going to match anything that was done in the comic, which was a great story. One of the best comic stories I've read. But we're going to bastardize it. We're going to steal from that liberally. So it becomes kind of a shitty film to watch. And I mean, I will watch it, and I did watch it today, and I can enjoy it, but by the same token, there is the level which you enjoy Predator, the first Predator movie, where it never disappoints no matter how many times you've seen it. And then there's the level of this film where you drag it out of the collection once in a while and watch it just to complete watching it, just so that you can say, well, I watched all the movies in a row, or I haven't seen this one in a while. It falls flat. It really does. It feels like junk food cinema. We then have Aliens vs. Predator Requiem, which, by the way, I don't know if anybody's picking this up, but I'm listening to Prometheus in the background while I'm recording this, so if it's picking up, it is. That's why. So Aliens vs. Predator Requiem gives us the concept of playing right off the last film. At the end of the last film, we find out that the last surviving Predator apparently had been impregnated with an alien. And as his species is bringing him back aboard the ship, they've got his body laying on the table, and the hybrid predator alien, Predalien, I guess you want to call it, pops out of its chest as a chest burster. Now, the problem with this is when you get to the second movie, it picks off right from there. And literally within seconds, this thing that has popped out of this body's chest, it develops into a full-grown alien within a full-grown hybrid alien predator. And yes, you could always say that, blame it on the fact that it is a hybrid. But, I mean, honestly, it's cheap. It's a cheap way of saying, you know what, we don't want to spend the time of taking the time to develop the story. It's a baby, and then it's an adult in a matter of minutes. And there you go. Fuck you. We don't care. We don't care if it doesn't make any sense. It is what it is, and you're going to fucking live with it. Which is pretty shitty. It's pretty shitty storytelling. It's pretty shitty character development. This thing gets a hold of a shuttle, goes down to Earth, crash lands, and begins to infect people with aliens, impregnate them with aliens. Now, the one thing I will say about the Pred-Alien combination, which was pretty cool, I think most people know at this point in time that the alien has a second mouth that comes out and bites at you. In this case, that second mouth is also an ovipositor, which can ram eggs down your gullet. And it proceeds to do this a couple times in the movie, stick that thing down people's mouths and drop like 4 or 5 alien eggs inside of it, which, again, grow at an increased rate of ridiculousness. It doesn't match anything in previous films, and it's done for the expediency of just making the film more exciting. We don't care what the gestation period would have been previously. We're just going to make this quick and fast and dirty. Now, because this is all going down, a Predator on, I guess, the Predator homeworld, they never quite clarify that, proceeds to come there and track this down and try to eliminate the aliens and the Pred-Alien hybrid. From there, we are filled with a town of characters who they play off a lot of the stereotypes, a lot of the tropes done in previous films, like a woman protecting a child, which is clearly our surrogate for Ripley and Newt. One character even screams, "Get to the chopper," which is something that was screamed in Predator. So there's a lot of things that they tried to recreate and make us feel good. It's like, remember, that's one of our favorite things. Let's put that in there. It's in the film, so it's one of their favorite things, so we're going to put it in there. And it just kind of... the cast really wasn't up to it. The characters were, and if you think the characters in Aliens versus Predator weren't developed, these characters are not developed in any way. They really are there to just be slaughtered endlessly. And that might have been kind of cool if we had had an all-out war situation, which I can't figure out why we didn't go into that in either Aliens versus Predator movie, have an all-out war. But, okay, whatever. We've got one Predator in this movie who's hunting them down. And he's a badass, too, man. He's got a lot of cool weapons. He's got a whip he uses. He's got swords. He uses this disintegration stuff. He's got 2 cannons, not just one shoulder-mounted cannon. He's got laser traps. This dude's a pretty badass Predator. Probably the baddest of the Predators we've seen on screen ever. But unfortunately, it's a character that's wasted because it's not there to do anything more than just be there and continue the story moving forward, which is actually part of the the better part of the film, because in a movie called Aliens versus Predator, I think the one thing we want to see is aliens fighting predators. And this one just kicks ass. Over any Predator we've seen previously, especially ones previously fighting aliens. And the movie itself just falls into a piece of shit, really, and just stops being anywhere near good. I will say this, the first Aliens vs. Predator brought back Lance Henriksen, who had previously played Bishop in Aliens and Alien 3. It brought him back as Charles Weyland, the head of the Weyland-Yutani Corporation, or in this point in time, it's just the head of the Weyland Corporation. And in the second film, at the very end of it, a piece of Predator technology falls in the hands of Mrs. Yutani, who obviously would be part of the eventual Weyland-Yutani corporation that merges at some point in time in the future in the Alien universe. So it looks like they were trying to get something going as an idea and a thought as to, giving a little backstory as to where Weyland-Yutani eventually would merge, but it never goes any further than that, because I guess they had planned another Aliens Predator movie that never, or were hoping to do another Aliens Predator movie that never actually ends up happening. Which is fine. You can leave it the way it is. Prometheus will pick up later on as still being the Weyland Corporation. And there's a line in maybe the deleted scenes of Prometheus that sort of links it back to mentioning the replicants from Blade Runner, sort of, which Blade Runner also is supposed to take place in the same universe as Soldiers. That's how it links back. So we're going to move on to the final film in the Predator series before we move on to the Aliens films, which is going to be a whole nother video because I'm just way too tired to go through all the Aliens films. There's like 4, 5, 6 of them, so I can't do that tonight. And I'm watching one now while I'm doing this. So, at any rate, so we're talking about Predators. I don't know what to say about Predators. I don't want to call it a bad movie. I don't want to call it a good movie. And the reason why I don't really want to do either of those things is because it falls into both categories. Now, as a film itself, it's not horrible. It's fairly action-packed and fairly interesting and fairly fun to watch. It's not like you watch it and you're like, oh my god, I wish I had my life back for having watched this film. It's not. The one problem I will say with it, though, is the guys who wrote it were fans of the original, of course, which is fine. And they tried to replicate a lot of what went on in the first film, to the point where they may have intentionally, accidentally, I don't know how you want to look at it, they may have followed the template a little too exact. As a good example, well, we had a guy in the first movie with a mini cannon. Well, let's make sure we got a mini cannon here. Okay, well, we had a scene where we had Billy fight off a predator by himself make that last heroic stand, the I'm not going to run anymore stand. This is where I make my stand and fight this thing. We also have the same thing happen to a character in this film as well. But of course it's with a sword and it's in a field, so it's very similar but very different in the same aspect. I think the concept was they really tried to make everything just amp it up. Instead of them being on Earth, they're on another world. And, we've got these dog things. And we've got a larger species of predator, which is having some sort of interwar with another species, with the species we're familiar with. And I guess the thing was we wanted to have something for a predator to fight a predator. And I get it. I get where we were going with this. I get what we were trying to do with it. But by the same token, the film just feels like it was... it took too much from the source material. And simply, instead of paying homage to what it did, it almost feels like it ripped off the first film. And just said, hey, it's a remake. Like The Force Awakens did. It just felt like a copy of the film, and an inferior copy at that. I'm not going to say I hate Predators, because I didn't. I absolutely didn't. I can watch it and enjoy it. But there's just a lot about it. It just feels, especially when you watch them all in a row, it just feels hollow and not necessarily that great of a film. And by the way, Lawrence Fishburne completely wasted in that film. He's only in it for a short time, and to be honest with you, it's not that good of a role for him at all. So there we go. That's my take on the Predators films. On an overall basis, I will absolutely watch them all, and I will absolutely watch them all over again. In order of what best to worst, I think it pretty much follows Predator, Predator 2, Predators. I kind of will give Requiem, Aliens vs. Predator 2 Requiem, put that before Aliens vs. Predators, only because there's a lot more action of the Predator fighting the aliens and it being a little more brutal and violent, because there's people being cut in half, literally, it's at one point in the film. So it's a little more brutal, a little more violent, as opposed to the tamer, more video game feeling Aliens versus Predator, the first one. So if you have to watch them from best to worst, it's 1, 2, Predators, Alien versus Predator, Requiem, hard word to say when you're fucking tired of shit, and then Aliens versus Predator. Overall, I really have no complaints about the franchise. I mean, it has its moments, and obviously the best moment is the first film, but the others are hardly horrible, to say the least. So there you go. Aliens and Aliens versus Predator. And at some point in time, I will do Prometheus and Covenant and Alien and Aliens and Alien 3 and Alien Resurrection as another tape. This one's gone on for 23 minutes already, so I'm kind of tired, and I'm probably going to sleep soon anyway. At any rate, there you go. I definitely watch them. I definitely rent them or buy them, whatever you want to do. I think it's a great set of films. Maybe not the greatest in some parts, but certainly worth enjoyable, without a doubt. Thanks.